Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about name, image, and likeness and how it's changing the game for collegiate athletes. So as he mentioned, my name is Aidan Sayel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mogul. Mogul is a leading name, image, and likeness software company that connects brands and fans to college athletes while automating the compliance disclosures to the schools. Joining me on the panel today is Tiffany Kelly of Curastory, Dr. Richard Southall from the University of South Carolina, Nisha, I'm getting your last name right now, and Dr. Ron Dick over there from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm going to give them each the floor to introduce themselves and what they're doing with regards to name, image, and likeness. So yeah, over to you, Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany Kelly, founder and CEO of Curastory. We are a video enablement tool for content creators, so similar to Spotify for podcasters. So we offer editing, music licensing, one-click distribution of your videos from our platform to social media, and insights tracking. And so for monetization, we're the first programmatic ad studio for influencer content. Any marketers in here probably understand what I'm saying. And we have about 40,000 creators and advertisers on the platform, so pro athletes, student athletes, and non-athlete fitness lifestyle creators.
Dr. Richard?
My name is Richard Southall. I'm a professor at the University of South Carolina in the Department of Sport and Entertainment Management, and I'm director of the College Sport Research Institute that sponsors academic journal on college sport issues called the Journal of Issues in Intercollegiate Athletics. We also sponsor an academic conference every March. This coming March 22nd through the 24th, we sponsor a academic 3-day conference on college sport at the University of South Carolina.
My name is Nisha Butler. I'm the CEO of STEAM Champs. We're a kids coding robotics educational franchise center. Prior to that, I was a professional basketball player, producer for CBS, and software engineer, and now entrepreneur.
Dr. Ron?
Yeah, my name is Dr. Ronald Dick. I'm an associate professor of sports marketing here at Duquesne University, and was a Division I athlete at St. Joe's Undergrad Masters in baseball. Also worked with the 76ers and the Nets for 15 years, and then got involved in college athletics at Marion College, a Division III school in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, University of Houston, and then 4 years as a professor at University of New Haven, 2 at James Madison, then here at Duquesne since 2006. Just recently presented 2 papers on NIL at the SMA, Sport Market Association, in Tampa, Florida, 2 weeks ago.
Great. Well, one of the things that really excites me so much about this panel in general is that you guys are going to get a lot of different perspectives on name, image, and likeness, both from tech startups, from former collegiate athletes, from educators, from university administration. You're really going to get and understand kind of a wide gamut of how different technologies and individuals and others are helping to support student athletes as they monetize their name, image, and likeness. So before we jump in, for those of you who aren't aware, on July 1st of 2021, the NCAA adopted an interim policy that would enable college athletes to be able to monetize their name, image, and likeness. Effectively, what this enabled college athletes to do is monetize their platforms, their audiences, and their publicity rights through endorsements, appearances, autograph signings, and more. So before we kind of get into the panel questions, Dr. Richard, would you kind of mind elaborating on the historical significance of the term student athlete?
So the term student athlete, for those of you that are unaware of its etymology and creation, was created by the NCAA in 1956. If you do what's called an engram, you'll notice that there is no existence of the term student athlete prior to 1955. The NCAA created the term as a legal reference or definition to forestall workers' compensation claims by college athletes. So the use of the term is what we refer to in the research trade institutional propaganda. It frames the discussion in a certain way to the detriment of some participants and at the benefit of others. So for example, shameless plug, I would recommend that you check out our new book that just came out called The NCAA and the Exploitation of College Profit Athletes, an amateurism that never was. It's available on any of the bookstores or whatever. But we spend about 355 pages deconstructing the terms that the NCAA has used. So, in my opinion, it is illegitimate to use the term student athlete, and I'm fortunate to hear that the General Counsel for the National Labor Relations Board feels the same way. So maybe that's put things in a little bit of context.
What should we call them?
You should call them college athletes.
Okay.
It's good. I refer to them as college athletes basically the entirety of these questions, so I'm glad to hear that. So panelists, just to get us started, would you mind just elaborating quickly on, in your current roles, how you're supporting college athletes in their pursuit of name, image, and likeness opportunities?
I'll start. I feel like we definitely take a very different approach to NIL. So I was a data scientist and analyst at ESPN before this. I was there when creator economy was really taking off. So a lot of our longest standing shows were axed in a very short period of time, like Mike and Mike, and just a lot of big shows. And I mean, it made sense for the first time. Like, we were competing with YouTubers and really didn't know how to handle that. And so I ended up leaving 2019, and I started building Curious Story in the spring of 2019 when the first NIL story broke. And I knew that student athletes would have the same problems that content creators and YouTubers had been having for years. It wasn't going to be that much different. And so just 6 months, just researched the market, what issues YouTubers were having, what issues student athletes, pro athletes were having, what issues advertisers and brands were having. And so that's kind of really how Curious Story came to be. So we are very different. On the brand side, we're the first programmatic ad studio. So creators and brands never talk on our platform. Brands just run campaigns, and we are bidding for them. So it's a programmatic media buy, a CPM buy. And creators just upload videos into the platform to edit, to add music, things like that. They have no idea who their advertiser is going to be. We transcribe the videos and send them the right advertisers, and they do ad reads in their videos, just like a podcast ad. So if you're watching it on YouTube or Reels, they're working out, and then they step away from working out to talk about athletic greens, and then they get back to working out. So that's just kind of the future of influencer marketing and just where creator economy is going and how they're monetizing. And we are very heavily based in pro athletes, student athletes, and kind of lifestyle wellness creators. But we really push content creation. So we don't kind of just connect brands and creators to go do their thing. We really are just kind of having student athletes college athletes.
It's only 4 times.
Think about not just kind of holding a Gatorade bottle, which I feel like what everyone is kind of assuming, but really being a content creator and what that means, because that will give you longevity. And so that's kind of how we approach it, and just what our product serves to do.
So the question was, how do we support?
Yep.
Well, my opinion of supporting a college athlete is really having them focus on having an engineering or STEM major in college. And the reason why I do that is because I think that we really need to be very clear on the percentage of even college athletes going pro. It's so minuscule and so small that needs to be said. Second thing is, I'm not sure how many people here are college athletes, but when you said college, we should be called professional that attend college athletes, because we have a professional schedule. So let me just give you a little insight of what we had. So I had practice at 6 in the morning, which means because my knees were hurting for the last 20 years, I had to be there and up at around 3:30, at the gym at about 4:30, getting treatment for about 45 minutes to an hour before practice would start, which ran from 2.5 hours. So that's 6 a.m. to 8:30 as a 18-year-old that just got out of my parents' house. Actually, I was 17 now. Then we had to make, especially the female athletes, we had to make class because my coach was sitting right outside of my industrial engineering class waiting for me, which started at 8:30, and then we went to class from 8:30 to about 11:30. Then we had a little bit of a break from 11:30 to 12:30. Then we had something called individuals. Individuals are 1 hour, not on the basketball court, but actually on the basketball court, working in individual skills. Then we had another thing called agilities, which was another hour where we were just running back and forth, working faster. Then we had another hour of weights. So that's about 3 hours. Then we had to go to class at engineering majors. We had like labs afterwards, and we had various team activities, community service, and we were also had to conduct ourselves as adults wherever we were. I mean, I was in Atlanta, in the 90s, and it didn't matter because I had to be on time, I had to be alert at practice in school, and I just want people to understand that college athletes are professionals, that you go from this way of life to this way of life immediately, and you're expected to perform. And I was Rookie of the Year my first year, and I remember my first few games, I didn't score that much because I was just in shock at the sheer level of responsibility that I had. So how I support student athletes is I make sure that they understand how to utilize their time, because you're a professional about going to school, because only 1% of us actually are professional. And quick fact, I was the young lady who got the role in Love and Basketball and couldn't take it because at that point in time, I couldn't make money off of my name, image, or likeness at that point in time, which was absolutely ridiculous. So, I'm coming from a standpoint that this is way overdue. We need to do more, and we need to start treating these athletes like professionals and compensating them accordingly. When a conference is like billions of dollars for their TV rights. So yeah, that's how I support them. You need to get an education. So
I think it's important to your point to recognize that NIL is a term, again, that the NCAA and its stakeholders made up. Prior to 2021, you didn't refer to it as name, image, and likeness. You referred to it as right of publicity, which every person has. And name, image, and likeness, or NIL, in my opinion, is a diversionary tactic to deflect attention onto the fact that the college athletes in 3 sports should be viewed as employees, and the other 97% should be viewed as consumers. So the concept of differentiating between college athletes, as some college athletes are profit athletes, and a profit athlete is an athlete whose market value is greater than the value of the grant and aid. And a loss athlete is an athlete whose market value is greater than the grant and aid. So not all college athletes are being exploited. And that's something that is really hard for folks to wrap their heads around, because if you remember the last 2 hearings before the House of Representatives, you had one loss athlete, one hearing, a loss athlete in the next hearing. And the fundamental difference between profit athletes and loss athletes is really not discussed very much in the general population.
So I'm going to kind of disagree with that a little bit, but let me tell you why. The athletes that make the money, when you say the profit athletes, are normally the majority black athletes, which are football, basketball, they make most of the money. So at Georgia Tech, for example, we had Mark Teixeira, which was an awesome baseball player. We had Matt, I forgot his name, Matty, what's his name? Anyway, played golf. Didn't make any money in baseball, didn't make any money in golf. However, the football, Joe Hamilton, who was about to be Heisman Award, made money, and the basketball men's team made money. However, women's basketball, we didn't make a lot of money. But I was going to get paid $150,000 to do Love and Basketball. And as of right now, 2 athletes are in the top 5, Angel Reese and this girl from LSU, the gymnast. Yeah, super cute girl. $4 million, and I haven't watched a gymnast event since the Olympics, I'm not sure when. So the reason why I went to push back on that is because, generally speaking, football and basketball are the majority makes the most money for the entire school. So what I mean that is that football and basketball supported the engineering program. Like the athletics supports the entire school. So we can't say, well, okay, the women's sports or tennis or baseball, they don't make money, whatever, because I just feel like the entire school eats off of those 2 to 3 sports that make money. So if I'm not going to say, as a software engineer, I love the fact that I have a graduate degree from Georgia Tech and I'm a software engineer, but that's mainly because our CS department and our engineering department has, it's actually spectacular because of the sport. So I'm not sure if, I just think that everybody eats off of the majority profit sports. And if we're not going to say, well, the engineering students can't do awesome interns at NASA because they have the benefits of, being, at Georgia Tech where the sports is super cool, then I'm not sure we should talk about the women's softball team that makes no money. So that's the only reason why I'm like, kind of.
I'm not sure what you're pushing back on.
Okay, I'm pushing back on the fact that you had mentioned with the sports that don't make any money, right, and the profit sports that do make money, that they should be either treated differently or not considered a part of being a piece of the pie because they're not making money.
Well, they're part of the pie, but they're consumers of the college sport product as opposed to the production of labor. The labor is being produced in fundamentally 2 sports.
Right.
So those athletes, in my opinion, are being exploited because they're not being compensated according to their market value. So, and I'm not saying that the other athletes don't work hard and they're this and that, and so, but they should be compensated according to the market value. I told you, Ron, that this would go down a rabbit hole.
As a female athlete and Title IX supporter, I can't, I just, I won't be able to. The whole point of that, the 2 major athletes that make a lot of money, and when Title IX came by, because they give women, especially, the opportunity to go to college, to get college scholarships. I think, in my opinion, it shouldn't be separated. And most of the athletes I've talked to agree with it because it's so much money in the pot, right? And the athletes that you're talking about who are female and the student body is in the same boat, right? So
There's no question. Go ahead.
Can I mention something that that seems to be the beautiful part about NIL? You mentioned Angel Reese and Libby Dunn. They were able to get compensated through NIL, but yet they're not in these 2 sports that Dr. Southpaw mentioned. So to me, the money's external, and that it's great that, and I think a lot of us thought that the women weren't going to get their fair share. It seems like they're getting more than we originally thought, and I think those 2 examples you mentioned were perfect, the LSU young women. So maybe NIL, which is the primary purpose, I think, of the panel, may be able to correct some of that.
Yeah, from a mogul perspective, obviously what we do is we connect thousands of athletes to brands, and what we're seeing in our data and in our marketplace activities that female athletes are actually much more engaged and have had a higher average deal volume and higher average price per deal on the mobile platform. But where that starts to cause some complications is that in regards to this is pure NIL, this is traditional brand sponsorships and endorsements, whereas collective payments, generally speaking, are still primarily going to football and basketball.
Yeah, and that some definitions that I'd like to clear for the audience, and we have people on the panel that are as good as or better than I am for explaining it, but what does cost of attendance mean? You just said the word collectives. What exactly does that mean? What happened with the Alston lawsuit? How did that affect our student athletes across the country? So I throw that to the panel. Does anybody want to tackle those 3 topics?
The Alston case dealt with educational benefits, and that's all that it dealt with. It did not create the NIL space. The NIL space is a different mechanism.
Right. And for the audience, what is a collective?
Anyone want to take a stab?
It's separated from the university to basically allow people who are mostly alumni to raise money in the collective to pay off athletes. It's legalized buying athletes and you're seeing them transfer schools because collectives are giving someone hundreds of thousands of dollars because they want to win a championship.
It's a reflection of the imbalance in the market. Collectives are created. Collectives came into existence because players cannot be directly compensated by the athletic department. Athletic departments and conferences love NIL because NIL, as Ron pointed out, is external money. It's not money that is siphoned off from the athletic department. It's money that is created. So basically what NIL does is tell players, you're working a full-time job already, as you were talking about your schedule. Go get an Uber job. Go get a part-time gig and see about making some money. Be a content creator. We're not going to pay you a market wage that's collectively bargained. What we are going to give you is the opportunity to make money from someone else. And the perception that women are making all this money in the NIL space, I think maybe is that yeah, there's outliers. There's 7 in the top 100 of whomever is looking at it that are making money. I don't know what the figure is this year on NIL valuation.
It's outliers, but I think that the reason why it's important is because they're making money. So let me just explain exactly why I feel the way I feel is because Title IX was specifically enacted because most of the universities get government funding, and they enacted that so there's no sexual discrimination with universities getting government funding. That is a reason why the money needed to be shared to get scholarships. So I don't know two things. We're in America, love being American, and we're a capitalist society for the most part. We should be socialists in education and healthcare, but that's a different story. However, I don't know any area where you can generate billions of dollars and not get paid. So this is my issue, right? Like, so the woman thing, I don't want to talk about because honestly, Title IX protects us, we got it. And honestly, I'm super proud about that because if you don't take, if you're not a public university and you're not going to take federal funding for civil rights and all this kind of stuff, then okay, kick the woman out, no problem. However, we got Title IX, we're working with it, and so that's where we're there. Now, with that said and done, let's just agree with that. Where is it anywhere in America where you can, they're just individual silos of conferences making billions of dollars and nobody's compensated? There's no health insurance for athletes after they leave. There's a specific graduation rate that you can't come back that's small. So this is my issue with NIL. You're right that women are not killing it. I'm not saying that they're killing NIL. However, it's now we have opportunities to market whatever it is that we're marketing as a female athlete that we're able to get paid. By no means is it's even. However, it's an option. I'm just, as a whole, for the men, how come they're not being compensated in addition to those NIL checks? They need to get a check in addition to the NIL checks. I don't know why that's not the case.
Okay, so shifting gears just a little bit, right? So with regards to name, image, and likeness, and the opportunity for an athlete to promote a brand to help them build awareness for their products and services, right? So some data from Business Insider shows that college athletes have been proven to perform double, twice as good as another subset of influencers across Instagram, and 6 times as well across TikTok. But beyond their social media performance, what do you guys think about, or what is it about college athletes that provides such an innate marketing value to brands, both at the local level and the national level?
18 to 34-year-old demographic is them. So the consumers can readily identify with a college athlete. One of the issues that is on the upside is this brand identification and sponsor identification, fan identification. The dirty little negative side is the amount of times in every college football broadcast specifically that college athletes are referred to as kids. It's at least 5 to 6 times per broadcast of every bowl game, every college football game, that a college football player who's an adult, can serve in the military, can sign contracts, except is referred to as a kid, which is not mistaken in my part. I think it's a tactic used to infantilize the players, because you don't negotiate salary with a kid. You give a kid an allowance. So I just figured I'd bring up some other bombshell.
I also think being tied to the university too, like fandom, if you guys aren't familiar with our deal with the Pac-12, we're really excited. And our partner TempestX, but our deal that we have with all 12 schools is for the first time in history, they're actually able to monetize in their marks. And that's a deal that we have specifically with all of the schools. And so just seeing a lot of student athletes, a lot of them are non-football, really taking advantage of kind of becoming content creators and uploading into the platform and monetizing the millions that we have in like programmatic ad spend. But them being able to kind of upload workout videos in the workout facility and seeing the USC mark or the Cal logo, and just having that brand identification and still being able to commercialize on that, I think really probably drives the like percentage intake of them versus normal influencers. I'm curious to see if that will taper off a little bit, just as like NIL becomes a thing over time and becomes more normal, like within the creator economy. But I think it's the fandom of the university and just being so closely tied to it. And I think, yes, capitalizing on the kind of being able to commercialize their marks like in the 4 years or 5 years, however long they're there. And then kind of beyond still kind of monetizing social media, still with that fandom, but then being able to kind of aggregate new and different audiences as well.
And they're cool. I mean, college athletes are young, relatable, and every year you get a crop of new fans. So when you have to pay, the Knicks game is ridiculous how expensive this current Knicks game, but you can easily go to any of St. John's games, shout out to St. John's, any of the college games, and every year they get a new crop of fans. So I think college athletes are the best, actually, because they're young, they're fun, it's the youth. And I mean, if you guys have ever gone to a college game, I mean, they're fanaticals. It's kind of like a mini cult every university with the sheer ridiculousness and craziness that these kids have been brought up, so young. So I think that's the reason why they're, super remarkable.
One of the things I mentioned, if you go to any sporting event, there's really 3 buckets of people that are there. And that's the traditional undergrads, 18 to 23, the alumni, and then there's that local community. So let's look at the powerhouses of football, SEC in particular, the Big Ten. They're usually in rural areas. Like here in Pennsylvania, you've got Penn State is the 3rd largest city in Pennsylvania every time they play a home game. And there are people in that community that live there that may or may not have gone to college, but that's their state team. Lincoln, Nebraska, Ann Arbor, Michigan. It goes on, South Bend, Indiana. It goes on and on. So, yeah, it's like that's their team in their city, and they want to support it. And, definitely in the southeast part of the country, I mean, that's their pro team. There's no question.
So all of these aspects obviously weigh into and make college athletes uniquely valuable for brands looking to build awareness for their products and services. And it's enabled them to monetize their NIL and receive compensation, which I think we can all agree we're very excited about, and it's been a long time coming. That being said, when you look at the broader landscape, and now that college athletes are signing endorsement contracts or engaging both for monetary and professional opportunities, where do you feel that college athletes have the most room to grow? Or said differently, where do you feel that college athletes are struggling the most or perhaps getting into trouble?
Well, I think where we need to grow is more support for the education aspect of it. Women, I don't want to mess with Georgia Tech, but I feel like the women's sports were about 90+% graduation rate, and the men were not. And I think even though they are professionals, even though they should get the money and get paid, I do believe there should be more support and guidance as far as like graduation rates. And also, I think that they should have, and I probably won't agree with this, but I think they should be allowed to be kids. Not that I agree with calling them kids, I got that point and actually agreed with it. But I just feel like I didn't have a college experience because I was under a microscope and I had to act a certain way, whereas my peers were allowed to like experience college. So I think it should be like a total person that they're able to grow as individual adults. I mean, that's a human experience. So I think two ways: education. Every college athlete should be able to graduate, help to graduate, and then also on a human level, these professional college athletes should be given the space to actually grow as adults, because they're not.
First thing that I would advocate for is some college athletes should be viewed as employees. That's going to happen in either the House case, the Johnson case, or the NLRB hearings that are starting in December. So I think that's the first issue that's going to happen. Second thing is, I don't see that it should be necessary for college athletes to graduate in 4 years or 5 years. I see no reason that a college athlete fundamentally has to go to school full time. They could go to school part-time and come back and finish their degree after they finish their professional career. Because it seems to me that a very motivated student is somebody who's been cut from their third NFL team and then is looking to transition to another thing. So I think that's the most important thing. The last thing that I think college athletes writ large, but specifically in the profit sports, I think they should have the right to unionize. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, which is why you see this push by League One and conference commissioners and conferences in general to get preemption of state NIL laws, to get a limited liability protection on antitrust law, and to have college athletes declared to be that they can never be employees. And there's no other class of worker that is subject to this sort of scrutiny that the conferences are putting them under.
I think content creation is actually really difficult. And I mean, obviously I think we see it every day just because we actually have like full-time content creators on the platform using us. And there are some college athletes that are amazing at doing it, and either by themselves or they have a team. But we are doing a case study actually right now with all 12 Pac-12 schools and then also LSU, Texas. Like, what does it look like to have the social media athletics team step in to help a little bit, or kind of freelance videographers and editors just to kind of help them a little bit with content creation. Because I think like with NIL, it's, okay, you weren't able to make money at all. Okay, now you can make money. Okay, like go create a podcast, which is like not a natural progression. And which is why we're super excited with our deal with the TIPSX and Pac-12, just because being able to monetize on your highlights and commentate on your game footage, whether reactionary content or upload your workout videos in the workout facility, being able to monetize that, it's a natural progression and kind of like dipping your toe in the water to content creation with super low-hanging fruit, like talking about yourself like in a play with your teammates. And so, yeah, we're super excited just to see kind of what kind of comes out of this case study, and just having some ability to help them create content, just if they're going to do it more, I think. And even last year, we were on a roadshow to all D1 schools because I think people are telling them to do NIL, but it's like, okay, like how? Like, how do I do NIL? Just like, what does that actually mean? And so literally was on campus, just like explaining to them, like what CPMs are, like what's a CPM buy, like how to actually price your content out. Like our platform does that for them, but just like what it means, like how to talk to advertisers, how to actually create content. So literally like explaining like a 4-act structure to like a movie, just like the problem, the climax, and like things like that. And you can do that in like a 30-second reel, which is how reels become viral, is they follow that act structure. And the college athletes that do really, really well, they're pushing out content and video. And it's going to continue and trend this way. Like, advertisers expect their influencers and their ambassadors and whoever they're doing media with to create content. They're sending video drop kits, and they're just expecting them to do it. So I think just more education around that, and just kind of the case study that we're doing with these big universities of, okay, like, because they're so busy and their schedule's kind of insane, just having the social team step in a little bit, or freelance videographers and editors to kind of help out, just kind of with that, and then them kind of taking it from there post-college.
Great. And I know we've been certainly encouraged at Mobile as we've watched athletes really improve and grow as content creators and as brand ambassadors as well. Do we have time for one or two questions or no? All right, we have 3 minutes. Anyone have a question?
So this might be a little out of scope of college sports, but we focus on the youth sports industry at Turnkey Tickets. And because of the specialization of sports, so many people can't even afford to participate anymore. Their local rec centers don't even have enough kids to play teams because everyone wants to post on social media that they won a trophy. And, you know, for example, the High School State Association New York allows NIL. And it's not, from my perspective, of even paying a high school student, but just helping them pay for the fees to participate in the sport. You know, what would you recommend to help? And how come there's no collectives to help these high school students, you know, just be able to play? Because they're being eliminated younger and younger.
Well, I don't understand why it costs $1,500 to participate in a baseball team in the first place, right? So,
I agree.
yeah, you know, like so. I think in my opinion, instead of putting the onus on the parents and the kids, I think people need to push back on these AAU teams and these, you know, enormous fees just to play a sport, especially when you're an amateur. You know, I'm not sure exactly. Because I feel like if we then, you know, get donations or get scholarships like in high school for these kids, I think it's going to get worse. You know, I just don't know why that happens, and I figured where the term came from that. So I just think it's unfortunate that kids now have to pay to participate in sports. So let's kind of start there. I'm not sure how we do that. You guys know.
Yeah, it was definitely a problem that we witnessed firsthand when we started Mobile, and something that we really sought to solve through NIL directly. So we partnered with an organization called Every Kid Sports, and what they do is they donate a portion of, or we donate a portion of our proceeds directly to Every Kid Sports, and for $150 a season, they can help pay the equipment fees, the travel fees, and the registration fees for an individual youth athlete that can't compete. So those organizations are really helpful, and we're hoping to create a feedback loop through NIL that will support the next generation of collegiate athletes. But yeah, it definitely is a scenario that occurs much more on the local level and probably involves fixing.
And these kids are different also. I recognize that when you, especially in New York City, we used to, in the summertime, go by the basketball courts, there's nobody there. Like, you know, like kids are not participating in sports in the way that they used to, and then on top of that, it's more expensive, right? So, I mean, I figure, I mean, I love sports. Sports has given me a lot, so maybe parents, you know, can do more about that. But just in general, this generation of kids, they do prefer to be online and playing video games and all these other things other than just human interaction and playing sports. So that's a problem that I'm not sure with the advancement of technologies how we can combat that. But it's just kind of like a fact.
Okay, rapid fire, because we have 1 minute. Favorite NIL deal to date?
Can I make a final comment?
Oh, yes.
We gotta even
I
start.
might get in trouble, but yeah.
Final comment for the audience. There's 2 documentaries I highly recommend. One from 2013 called Schooled, with a $, Schooled, The Price of College Athletics. You will see Dr. Southall in that. And in 2016, there's one that came out called The Business of Amateurs. And I'd like to connect with anybody and everybody that's in the room right now. Julian, who's running this whole show, he and I do a podcast every 3 weeks that we put on LinkedIn and Facebook. And the topic of Neil comes up usually every 3 weeks. I'm out.
That's funny. I think for me, so one of our brand partners that we have, Chipotle, on the platform, they're actually really intentional about NIL and who they partner with. I mean, everyone and their mom eats at Chipotle, so they could spend millions if they wanted to. But they're really particular about just avid Chipotle lovers, and I think Will Shipley at Clemson is probably one of my favorites. He literally has the nickname Chipotle, and the deal that Chipotle did with him and having a Chipotle in Clemson is really, really cool. So I think that was probably one of my favorites.
If you can move fast.
I
actually don't have a preference for any specific NIL deal. What I would prefer to say is it's about time to pay the players and pay them a negotiated market rate. And so I'll leave it at that.
Of her, all the women, because I think that it's the only opportunity for them to capitalize on making money. I love Angel Reese and I love the gymnast. What's her name?
Olivia Jack.
Okay.
She doesn't create that much video content, but it's fine.
Yes, no, these young ladies, these young women are, they just wouldn't have that opportunity. So the men are going to get their money. However it is, whether it's under the table, over the table, the men always get their money. However, the females, I'm super excited that they're able to capitalize and they're awesome. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you all.